Most of the work we do today is part of a larger project or program. And often as part of these projects, we have content and assets that need to be created and tracked. In this session, we will learn how to set up and manage a project sheet and how to effectively collaborate on content with your team. This session may contain forward-looking statements, and any trademarks in this presentation are not endorsements. Hi, everybody, I'm Cicero. I'm one of the product readiness managers here at Smartsheet, and today we're going to talk about project sheets and how we can use those to both manage our project as well as the content that goes into our projects. So we'll talk about what makes them special. We'll talk about dependencies and how to enable them within our project. And then how to leverage things like proofing in our project to manage the content that might be part of what you're doing. All of that is what we're going to talk about today. All right, let's look here. Going to start at our workspace, and I'm using the construction schedule and Gantt template from the Solution Center. So if you want to be able to kind of experiment after you see this, you can go to our Solution Center and download that. That's what I'm using. So you have that to play with. So with that said, let's look at that. I've got a construction sheet that looks more like a task sheet right now. And I see a start date, all of my tasks, potentially the assigned to, things like that. But I really want to move this to the next level. I need to manage my project. This whole project, I need to know when things are, what's got to happen before something else, all of those different things. So the first thing that I would do is I would go from grid view right to Gantt view. But Gantt view has some requirements. And the requirement is that there has to be two date fields, a start and an end, for instance. So let's do that. I'm going to right click, insert a column, and I'm just going to call this end date. Okay, make that the date. Okay, now I've got both components. I'm going to hit save just because. Go from grid view, then to Gantt view. Just like that, we start seeing the project come together. And we can see how that is. You notice I don't have any end dates in yet. I'd have to go through and modify that. And when I did, you would see that reflected on the Gantt view. All of those different tasks would now show starts through finishes. But I need to add more. I need to have things like dependencies. And how do I enable those? If I go up to the right-hand side, the little gear, you'll see Edit Project Settings. And I'm going to click on that, and you see a checkbox. That checkbox is to enable the dependencies. When I check that, I get a message. It says, we're going to add two columns to your sheet, duration and predecessors. Duration being the time across that it takes, number of days, and then predecessors being what has to happen before the next thing. So it automatically adds that for me. And I can do some other things here. For completion, it looked and it said, do you have anything that looks like a % complete? And I do. I have a % done that's on my sheet. If we look too, we can see the predecessor column and the duration column have been added on my list. We can change the work week, how those are all laid out, all of that here on these settings. Another thing you might be thinking about is resource management. How do I look to see, have I over-allocated somebody? Well, we have two ways to do that. And the one way is here within Smartsheet. If I click on resource management, you see that I can enable the Smartsheet resource management. That allows me to track resources on the sheet with Smartsheet. It gives me a pretty high level view though. And if I really want to take resource management to the next level, I would use 10,000 feet. Smartsheet's resource management product. And the cool part about that is those two things interact. We can join those together to actually track how we're doing those things. So we'll look at the resource management because I just enabled that. And when we look here, we have to pick the assigned resource and also the allocation, percent allocation, because that's what it's using to say this person's doing too much. So I'm going to look here and, oops, I didn't set it. There we go. And you see assigned to, it picks. And then I'm going to select percent allocation, which happened to be one that I added before this, but you could actually then stop this, go add one and bring it, come back in and do that. All right, so once that's done, you see some other magic take place, changed here. And if we look at that, we see now that if I scroll over, we have predecessor and duration added. And the duration is already set up in some cases for how long things are going to take place. Well, let's go to one that's a little more finished. Here we go. You'll see on this project sheet, looks the same, but I've added end dates. And by adding end dates, I can now see the full breadth of how long each task will take. And I can also see what is dependent upon other things. And you see in the predecessor, you can add that by putting in a number of the row that it's dependent upon, or you can grab it like this and actually connect those two. You can connect that, make those connections. Sometimes I'll do one, sometimes I'll do the other. It depends on how I'm building things. But by having those end dates, I can see that, and then I can decide how that's going to go through. Now, those people that are more experienced with project sheets, you'll know that there's different paths that we might be able to look at and need to know how a project is going along. And let's look at those. The first one being critical path. The path from the beginning to the end of your thing, whatever this is, the construction of this house, for instance, from beginning to end. What has to take place for that to happen? And if I click on the critical path icon in the upper right-hand side, I see that it now has filled it in. Everything that must take place from start to finish in my project. That's what I've got to have here. So you see how that happens. I'll turn that one off. And what about if I want to know for a single area, a summary area? And that's what this gray bar is a summary area. I want to know all of the summary path of that. If I right click, I can say show summary path. And now you see all of those things that are connected within that path. I can check that for all of those different ones. I'll hide that. And then I can also have the ability to see drive path. What is driving whatever task I'm looking at that moment in time? So in this case, I'm going to select this one. I'm going to right click and I see show driving path. And when I do that, you see all of the things that led to that task. What has to happen? You'll notice that there are things that aren't part of the driving path. They are still part of my tasks, but may not be dependent on this. And so you can use that to see how all of these different tasks come together and are connected to each other. So those were all the different paths: driving path, summary path, and critical path. I'm going to hide that. And if you're looking, you've been looking here and you say, well, hey, wait a minute, I saw some little red people over here on the left-hand side. Those are the resources. When we enabled resource management on the sheet, this is telling me we have some issues. Somebody is over allocated. And how do I see that? Up on the right side, I see project resource view. And I can look at that and go, oh, Hero and Tamika are both over allocated in different areas for different days. I better adjust that. Now that is taking advantage of not only this sheet, but all the other sheets that I may have enabled resource management on that these people are part of, that they have been assigned to something. It's all put together in there, and that's how I can know. So it gives me that nice high level, whoops, I better go and readjust. And I can do that there. So the project sheet lets you then start tracking all of this. You can add dependencies. You can see how things are going along. If you move these individual things, you can change dates as needed. All of these things can be also used with automations and all of the things that make the project sheet come alive within Smartsheet. But you go, well, wait a minute. I've got some different types of content that I need to deal with within this. How do I put that in here? Let's look at it. Scenario. First, I have a site person they've gone out on the site and they've made a rough sketch so that I see what has to be done on that site to do this construction. Well, let's take advantage of Smartsheet's proofing to get a discussion going about that site. And I'm going to enable proofing. And once I do that, I see that I have a proofing column on my left-hand side. And I'm going to look at my sheet and I see, oh, review sketch and spec sheet. Well, that probably might be where I want to do it, or sketch sent. Let's add it there. I'm going to click that and it says, do you want to upload one? This was sent to me by an email, something like that. It came in. I wanted to add it to this so that we can discuss. I see that graphic. This is the site. It was just a quickly drawn picture, but now it's available for us to talk about. I can click on an area and I can put a comment in. Maybe this is a creek that needs erosion control, for instance. But not only can I put comments on this graphic, but I can use @mention to actually talk to somebody specifically. This can send a message to somebody else and their responses can be tracked here on the proof. So all of that dialogue about how this lot needs to be adjusted before the house can start is all right here. And in proofing, we can do graphics, we can do videos, we can do Microsoft documents and PDFs. It's amazing that we can track all of that right here, and that's proofing. We can also, maybe we have the site visit when they go out there, they're also taking information. They're looking to see how things are put together, what's happening. And I use a form for that. They have a form. The technician or the expediter, when she's working, she goes out and she has an iPad that can get to the internet. She has a form and she fills that out about all the things that need to happen within that site. And we do that here, and we can right click on that information and use generate document to actually generate a PDF, a fillable PDF from the information that was provided on that row. So look at that. It's all right here. And we can download that and we can add it to the sheet right here on our project sheet. So all of that is together. We also have a spot for the contract. Well, what if we want to do that? Let's use attachments. And we'll take attachments and we can add the attachment. And we could say, yep, here's the contract. I'm going to put that right into the sheet. And so now we've got that as part of this project plan. So not only have we used the project sheet to manage our project, but we're managing the content that works with the project so that it's all in one spot for people to get to when they need it. That's the power of this. So let's bring that all together again. Okay, I'm going to close this. And here we go. What did we learn? We did this really fast, but what did we learn? We learned that the Gantt chart requires 2 dates, and it's the view that enables project planning. When we turn that on, we can use the edit project settings to enable dependencies, to put in duration, and also to talk about allocation with the resource management. And we have the proofing, we have attachments, we have the document generation, all of those ways to use the content in the project itself, to put that all together. So how do you take it to the next level? The Learning Center, training, Smartsheet community, all of these places to go and take yourself to the next level and use the Engage Brain Boost for more information, more ideas. Thanks for using Smartsheet. Keep doing dynamic work. Have fun.